So it's Jonathan Lea, the man, the legend.
Well, what an introduction. So what do I say to that?
I joined you a couple of years ago now, and we had
21, was it?
Yeah, we went out and had a beer and had a chat about you and I.
Yeah. So Kent, I think, maybe mentioned to you there was a possibility you might want to join us, and you were like, "Well, I'm working elsewhere, but could be something there. Let's have a chat."
But I don't think I ever asked you why you're a lawyer.
Oh crikey! No, you're going back to interviewing paralegals for that dreaded question that took me a while to work out how.
But did you have a family who were lawyers?
No, yeah. So I come from a family of accountants. Well, people have done all sorts of different things, but most of the blokes in the family, for one reason or the other, done their accountancy training qualification and then worked in the family. One family business, which was an accountancy practice, or then use that training to go on and do something else, and acquiring companies and running those in one instance. I guess maybe they liked numbers more, but no one had ever done anything in law or actually no one actually been to university, I don't think, apart from my older brother. So I didn't really know anyone close to me who had done law, but over time it became something that I learnt about and thought, okay, I'm a bit better with words than I am numbers. I don't like the idea of being an accountant. What about this thing, legal profession? It's initially I was like, it's very kind of conservative, formal, old school. Don't kind of like that, and you have to study a long time. I just want to get out into do my degree, but otherwise get out into the real world and see what happens. But for some reason, I think I spent a week in a careers library, chatted to people, and made a decision. Yeah, I'll be well suited to a career in law. This is what I want to do. Boom, let's make the decision there. And then you have to commit to the LPC and get the. Luckily, I got the sponsorship from a firm in London and joined them for the training contract. But I think all of the combination of different things that's involved with the role. It's I don't think you're ever going to make unless you work in the city or something, a huge amount of money. I think the appeal is the profession and the respect you get, and the fact that you can be a valued part of the community, whether it's local or wider than that in your industry that you're serving, and you can be seen as a respected profession who's got really good expertise and can build a client base and is known for helping people resolve issues and using your way with words, as it were, your analytical mindset, your appetite for solving issues and challenges and taking responsibility. Risk and responsibility, obviously, sometimes often closely linked, but risk is a difficult one for lawyers because your job is to advise clients on risk and ultimately for them to make the decision. But you don't want to be seen as overly focused on you need to give practical, pragmatic advice as well and say, well, if I was in your position, I would do this. And I think that sort of practical, commercial aspect of the job I've always been suited to and like that. So I kind of like try and put myself in the position of the business owner and the entrepreneur and say, look, I've got to cover every little angle of this. That's kind of my job, but it's also to give you, not to make a decision for you, but to give you a steer and say, well, I would do this. It's your decision.
Yeah, I think I often
nothing to do with me.
I say, well, if you were a member of my family, this is probably how I'd advise you, because I think your sense of responsibility to your family or your close friends is probably much higher than the responsibility you feel to your clients. But I think if you put them in the shoes of a family or a friend, I personally find that's a good way of
I think people
balancing it.
People don't want to, as you say, they want to feel that you care, and they don't want to feel that you're just sitting on the fence and that you're not being decisive, incisive, what have you. So I think you that's an important part of the job.
And so you're all corporate yourself, aren't you? That's what you do.
Yeah, I've worked mostly corporate commercial very generally. So I started off at city firms where you're more focused on the corporate work, and within that, mergers and acquisitions, public company market work like flotations and things. So and then after I sort of effectively got to a point where I was a bit fed up of that and didn't want to work all hours forever, and stepped out of that world and worked at a regional firm in Cornwall for 2 and a bit years. And then that was very general corporate commercial work, private company, owner-managed businesses, the clients, and discovered I enjoyed that a lot more. The pay wasn't anything like it was.
The pace of life completely different.
Yeah,
there, I imagine too.
Yeah, I was sort of, working late was like in the office after 6 o'clock. Otherwise, the office was empty at 5:30, and going from a very pressurised, competitive environment in London where if you're not working to like midnight, you're not going to do the hours, you're not going to be kept on. To then being able to feel that you're not going to lose your job, and that you can be a valued part of the team by having a better work-life balance in the process, and doing more rewarding work because all your clients are owner-managed businesses. They're entrepreneurs. They care a lot about their business. They're much harder to keep happier in some respects, but you learn a lot through that, how to deal with people and serve those clients and do a good job as a solicitor.
And is that when you formed the idea of setting up on your own then? From there?
Yeah, I think so. So I enjoyed that experience, and I thought, this is great. I could see myself doing this job, because beforehand when I was working in the city, it's like, oh, do I really want to do this forever? It's, and you're in London, all the rest of it, you're caught up in the rat race. How do you get out of that? So it was, okay, I enjoyed Cornwall, but it got to the point where I didn't necessarily want to spend the rest of my life living there. It's a bit like living on an island where it's very difficult to get anywhere else. So I thought, well, I'd probably prefer to be back in Sussex, where you're closer connected to...
Where you've grown up as well.
Yeah, I knew the area, closer connected to London, Coast, Gatwick. Yep. But you can still experience the countryside lifestyle. You don't have to pay a huge amount of money just to get on the property ladder, if not that being an impossible target. Where am I going with this? What was the question?
So it's setting up your own place.
I looked at the other local firms, I think, and I was thinking, well, where could I see myself working? And I looked at a couple that I thought were the better ones, and then the more I looked into them, I thought, I don't think I'd be that happy there, and it could well not work out. And then there was the new thing at the time, it was sort of over 10 years ago now, but it's becoming more common for people to work as a consultant solicitor. So I did think about starting my own firm. I realised when I looked into that was very difficult, wasn't straightforward. You don't necessarily want to try and go through all of that very stressful experience if you're not going to be successful, and it could be a nightmare. So I thought, well, instead of that, I'll work as a consultant solicitor, self-employed, fee share arrangement. You get to build your own client base. You get that freedom and flexibility. Let's just give that a go, see where it gets to. And it worked out very well. I had lots of work coming my way. I built a website at the same time that generated lots of leads. And then after a couple of years, I had the problem where I had too many things coming my way, and I spent all day referring them to other law firms and not really getting anything in return. So it was like, how do I get out of this situation? I really like my simple lifestyle of keeping everything lean, profitable, working my underpants from home, not having to do anything, go anywhere, manage people, have employees. Great. This has all been very good. It's all worked out well, but I'm now stuck in this position where I need to make a move forward, and the only way to do that was to get an office, employ people, and then eventually become a regulated firm. So that there was a sort of overlap of about a year's period where I got the office, which was the closest possible office to where I lived. It was only £200 a month, which at the time felt like a large amount of money, but I was thinking, well, I can't find anything cheaper than that. I better just say yes. Spent ages trying to sort out the electrics and all the rest of it to get it operational. Got couple of people in the office to work with me.
Who started with you first?
Couple are still there. Alison, who I met on a night out in Brighton through someone I played cricket with. And unfortunately, when I first started it coincided with my dad being very ill and passing away. So I had her in the office, but then I had to take lots of time out with that as distraction, unfortunately. So at the same time, she then got a very good graduate offer from Hiscox Insurance, where she'd done a someone had dropped out from the graduate scheme and she'd done work experience there the previous summer. So yeah, fair enough, fine, yeah, great. Yeah, so she was the first, and it was a shame because you never know what could have happened otherwise, and it was good fun for the few weeks we worked together. And then after that, it was January 2018, we had Zara, who joined as a solicitor, so I couldn't employ a solicitor directly, so instead the firm that I consulted through had to employ her, and then I had to pay her salary cost plus VAT in advance each month to...
for them to keep her on?
Yeah, for them to employ her, and then in return she worked exclusively with me in the office. And it was a bit hairy to begin with. I was thinking, I've got to pay for all this, and there was a paralegal who joined us later in the year, Simon, and then after that, Callum, who's still with us, and then Alice as well started in that year, 2018.
Okay.
So there were sort of 4 of us bunched together in this tiny little office space. But yeah, it was a bit hairy. First few months, I was thinking, is this going to work out? Is enough work coming in? But by the end of the year, made really decent progress, momentum, more work coming in. 2019, we became a regulated firm because we had Callum and Simon as paralegals who been there almost a year in Simon's case. Callum less, but they became quite important to the business. It's like, well, I can't lose these people. You have to then offer them the training contract. To do that, we had to become a regulated firm. Right. So I think it was Simon who mostly filled in the paperwork, and then you're committed to the next stage, and it's like, oh god, we've got to get the insurance, get involved in all of that stuff, and increasing the overheads and try and increase the revenue year by year to keep up with everything.
I mean, the worries you had then are just the same as they are now, aren't they?
Nothing
changes.
The numbers are much bigger now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If anything, I mean, I mentioned the other day when we took on Callum, who's become like a really key part of the team now, and he's sort of been there since those early days. But even though I thought he was great initially, I thought, can I really afford to take on another paralegal? I think he started on a salary of 18,000 or something, which at the time was like, oof, that's a lot, another paralegal to manage. And I remember agonising over the decision over a weekend, whereas that's worked out great for the business and myself and Callum and everyone else.
But the problems for law firms don't change. I mean, what would you say is the greatest challenge for you in your law firm?
Well, I think as we get bigger, it becomes. In the early days, it was there's less things, less volume of things to coordinate and manage and get right. And now, as we get bigger, as I'm learning, it's much more important to really have a focus on all the numbers and know what is informing those numbers and what's behind those numbers. So monthly management accounts, different financial data, I'm now looking at on a much regular basis to make sure we are doing things in the right way. And again, I think the last few months has been a bit a new situation for us because, okay, there have been some harder times in the past, but we've always been going up. Revenue's been increasing all the time. There's been a nice trajectory, and last year revenue went up 62% over the course of the year. But then, similar to other firms, we've sort of flatlined, declined a bit over the last few months. So all the decisions have been made on the basis like, it's fine, we'll just keep growing. Whereas now it's like, we can't do that forever. You need to be, if more money isn't coming in, you've got to be really sensible on your costs and what you're committing to and who you're hiring and all the rest of it. So yeah, the other day we met a really good corporate solicitor who were really keen to hire. We got someone leaving us, Rada, at the end of her training contract. Any other time I would have straight away made him an offer. A really nice guy, he would make a difference to the business, but just can't make those decisions at the moment.
Just have to rein it in a bit, yeah.
Yeah, we just got to be more sensible. And again, it's still common to other businesses at the time. I think speaking to someone else earlier, runs a coffee shop, and he was saying, yeah, costs have just gone up massively. We got to be careful with the decisions we make.
So your biggest costs are what? Rental and professional indemnity insurance is always
and then the staff costs obviously and the wage bill. And the gross salary costs. So on top of that, now you have always had national insurance contributions on the employer, and then now the pension contribution as well. So just employing one person, even if you think it might be on a low salary, there's quite a few additional costs. Practical law subscription for one, that's gone up a lot over the last year. So they look at headcount and put it up according to that.
But what do you reckon? What do you reckon the firm does? I don't mean best or well. I mean 3 things the firm does well. Would you say?
It's difficult for me to know because I've been in my own little law firm world for several years now without seeing other.
Your expectations of your firm were to do what really, I suppose. I think meet those expectations.
Yeah, so I think obviously working at other practices, you get an idea of what works and what doesn't work so well, and if you had your own business, what you would do differently. So I think in terms of what I think we do well, we must be doing something right because we've been doing pretty well over the last few years.
Yep.
I think it's generally, I enjoy it anyway, a nice place to work. I know that makes a big difference before when I've worked at places where the atmosphere's not that great. People just don't enjoy it and you're not as motivated. So hopefully at the moment there's a good atmosphere. People like each other's company. They work well together. That all comes out in the service that clients get, I think. I think marketing, you've got to provide a great service. Hopefully word of mouth takes care of the rest. But we've been keen to grow. We always want new leads coming in. And the website and other things we've done have been good at generating decent new leads out of nowhere effectively, other than our existing client base. And I think that's something I was keen to do, act on those sort of web marketing ideas. Yeah. And that's worked well over time.
Yeah, and the articles drive business, don't they?
Yeah, so really
sharing
key.
Information is good, I think.
Yeah, really key to have just insightful, increasingly more long form but useful articles on the website. And some of the firms I worked at before or where I've seen they're not that good at doing that, and they might not need to. It's like, well, we only want to keep this size anyway, and we've got our client base and all the rest of it. But it's otherwise, for me, it's just seen as a missed opportunity. It's like, you could be growing a business and getting new clients in and helping people by, and the great way to do that is getting your name out there and accessing this huge market through the internet. So that's worked well. I think otherwise, I'm quite a detailed orientated person. So having just the ability to work with and train the paralegals and trainees, less so now, but more so in the early days, just making sure there's really high standards with communication, presentation, how you explain things to clients, just making sure there's no room for error or doubt, and having good systems and processes. I found at other law firms it can, even though they might spend a lot on systems and have snazzy cloud IT software and all the rest of it, some of them are very clunky and it can create more lost time for fee earners and make your job harder, which I found really frustrating. So we've used modern technology, cloud software and all the rest of it. We've tried to keep it as simple as possible, easy to use, and not just technology systems that way, but just human systems, and have a good way of working together as a team and delegating certain tasks and involving the juniors wherever we can to make things as speedy and as efficient as possible.
And you've tried, I mean, since I've been there, you do sort of summer placements for people and sort of indirectly recruit that way.
Yeah.
Is that the best route for recruiting people? Do you think? See a little bit of what they can do in the office and see what shape they take and how they interact and things.
Definitely, yeah. There's a lot to it, and to get it right or to get it working really well, you need to put a lot of effort into it. And again, I think that's another thing that I saw as an opportunity, is that I think bigger firms are better than this, that smaller firms, maybe that's why they're bigger, but generally most law firms, they have their existing team in place. They don't spend too much focus on getting the next generation in and training people up. Whereas that's something I really enjoy and saw as an important part of the business. And but like anything, like any recruitment process, you need to make sure you get the best possible people. So the only real way, other than interviewing people, is to get them in the office for a week or 2 weeks. Normally 2 weeks, sometimes longer, and then you can be sure that we this guy.
We use a feedback system as well, don't we? So you ask, how was so and so? How did they get on? How was their work? How did they do? And
I think again over time we've learned as a group is that it has to be a collective decision. I think though, and we have to. Okay, there might be a final interview with 2 people, but if somebody's done work experience, everyone in the office has got to know them.
Yep.
And if there's negativity about that person coming from 1 or 2 people in the firm, then that makes us think, maybe we shouldn't go for that person. We need like every single person in the office who's had an interaction with them to say, that person is really good. I like that. Da, 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 da. And if that happens, it's like, okay, we should go with that person.
Yeah.
And if not, maybe it's just one to just to wait and interview someone else. But
And social media, what do we do? You do LinkedIn a bit these days.
Yeah, now that they let me back on.
Yeah,
I do less of it now. I have to be a bit more careful, but maybe also my time is just, I can't find the time to do it, or I don't know why. But it has worked well. I just yesterday had a group legal counsel of a company who was an ex-lawyer, Simmons & Simmons lawyer himself, just got in touch out of the blue on LinkedIn and say, we want to, I don't know whether it come to anything, but saying, we've got sort of smaller issues, debt claims, what have you. We're looking for a law firm to work with on these. Can we have a call to chat about it? And I was like, well, what led you to get in touch? He said, I've never had an interaction with him before, but we're connected on LinkedIn. He said, I've just been following your posts over the years, and you came to mind as someone to get in touch. So if you're, I think it is important to be, it doesn't really matter what you say, it's just important to be active on LinkedIn, to say stuff and to interact, engage with people. And then, like it has always done, if you do that engagement, people remember you and things happen as a result eventually. You have to get the balance right. You can't spend too much time on social media. But for me, that's been beneficial, LinkedIn over the years, and also Facebook, Instagram, just generally more on a social level, but building your own network and more people knowing about you and keeping in touch with them, and things sort of flown come my way, our way as a result. So I think social media is good, but I've learned that the content on the website is far more effective. So if you just put decent content on the website, you spend 2-3 hours doing that, you're far more likely to get decent work from spending 2-3 hours doing that than you are from spending 2-3 hours or whatever it
from
is
your right
on social media
as well, because that's it. That's the important thing, is attracting the right clients.
It's not always going to be perfect, but the idea is that you're going to get the type of person who is searching online for that specific issue, has that specific pain point. It's like, okay, I need someone to help me. Boom, then they get in touch with you after reading that article. And then the social media is good to have in the mix and all the rest of it. But you need the content principally on the
and
the
how are you
website.
finding coping with your young one, because you've got a child now? So how difficult is that to manage?
That's made things a lot harder. So obviously, like all new parents, dads, you have no idea, even though siblings, brother and sister have had kids over the years, you never really appreciate what's involved until you have one yourself, I guess. So even though we've only got one, it's a big distraction, shall we say, from what I used to do. And I think I've always worked pretty long hours, but I can't really do that as much anymore. So I have a renewed appreciation for the importance of work-life balance, and how it is managing kids.
And what do you do recreationally? Do you have time for recreation then outside of work and
at the moment it's family things and taking Hugo to swimming lesson at the weekend and pushing him in his buggy around Hayward Sea for a couple of hours on Sunday. But hopefully now he's getting a bit older, it's a bit easier. So in the past, pre Hugo, it was playing cricket in the summer, going off a bike ride. What I've done now the last few months, which has been really helpful to my general fitness and well-being is playing tennis once a week. So that's a sport. That was always my main sport growing up, but I haven't played for a few years. But I thought, well, at least I can do that to a decent standard. And it just makes your whole body move in different ways. So in terms of like back seating up or anything like that from sitting at a desk all day, I found that if you go running, it's not quite the same thing because it's more rigid and you're just doing the one motion. Whereas if you're playing tennis, you're stretching all different ways. So your body becomes more flexible and it's less likely to get things like sciatica, which I had before from basically not moving enough, I think, and everything just ceases up. So yeah, important to.
So we need an office tennis court to match the bar football. That
yeah. I did think about getting a ping pong table, a table tennis table. But I thought that'd be too much of a distraction. But as it turns out, the football table has become the most addictive thing I've ever experienced.
How are you getting on in the rankings? I think I've played a couple of games and got thrashed on both. So
I've given up. Yeah. Unfortunately, Adit's left because that was a guaranteed victory each time. Despite him being quite good, but there was we were a similar standard, but I could always mostly win. But he's listening to this. But no, it's annoying because Callum continues to win at table football.
Yeah, but he always plays on a particular side of the table. I don't know if you've noticed that. And his tall stature is an important because of his stretch on his arms. I'm sure those things make a difference. We should handicap him in some way.
Yeah, he's got a broken toe or something at the moment, so I'm trying to play him at the moment because he can't move singles between around the table as much.
That's the thing. Are you holidaying this year?
Madeira, yeah.
Madeira, that's it.
So I've been Madeira every year, twice a year, twice in that year.
Not been. You like it there, though, don't you?
Yeah, we went. I think the first year of 2020. So it's like when you could suddenly travel somewhere. Madeira was one of the places you could go to. I'd never heard of it before. I thought it was in the Mediterranean or something, but it's in the Atlantic, and it's a really mountainous, tropical island in the middle of nowhere, but lots to do and see. And we found a really nice place to stay, so we go back there every year since. I think we've been 5 or 6 times.
And are you going this year, are you?
Hopefully towards the end, yeah. At the moment, I haven't planned any holidays this year. We went abroad quite a lot last year, so I'm thinking we haven't got anything organised yet. The summer's coming up for kind of being in this country in the summer, so I think we might go in maybe October, November. And then I think we went on too many holidays last year, so we need to. Well, this year we've got the nursery fees and all of that as well. So it seems that there's not enough money to splash out on the holidays and things.
So when I used to do these podcasts before, I used to wrap them up with 2 questions. So what book are you reading at the moment? If you're reading a book.
Oh, crikey.
Or the last book you read?
I've got several that I dip in and out. I'm trying to think of what the main one might be. Other than I just get sucked into my Twitter or X feed and see what people are saying on that.
And what music have you got on in your car at the moment? What genres of music do you like?
My Spotify list, which is all sorts from over the years, whether it's house music, rap, heavy metal music, things that I remembered and then added to my favourite list on Spotify. And then, now we're doing this kind of thing, podcast. So partly as a result, because I've started to listen to more and more podcasts and thinking, well, if I'm spending more and more time listening to podcasts, other people I'm speaking to are. So this is becoming like a more popular medium and people can listen to it in the car when they're out walking.
Do you have someone you sort of like particularly?
Yeah, so one has been the Delling pod. So Richard Delling-Pole, I think his name is. He used to be like a very sort of Tory-like figure who was a writer in one of the main writers in the Telegraph. That kind of person. He's not like that at all anymore. He's someone who's sort of stepped away from the mainstream, as it were, and the establishment, and has his own podcast where he talks about all sorts of things and views that otherwise wouldn't. And guess that you wouldn't get an airing in the mainstream media, and that he wouldn't necessarily wanted to talk about or believed in when he was in that alternative mainstream universe, as it were. So he's very good. Another one is similar to him is this guy called Dr. Malik, Doc Malik, who has an amazing podcast that is just. I listened to the first one or two of them. I was thinking, this is really well put together, and I actually called him because I've met him before, had a chat, and go, "How have you done this?" He goes, "I've done loads of research. I really want to do this." He was one of the surgeons who was speaking out about the jab mandates and lockdowns and all the rest of it, and that eventually led to him losing his job, even though he's self-employed, but he could no longer practice at the main hospitals where he was working at. So partly as a result of that, and partly because he's just built this interest in podcasting. That right, that's it. Even though I've got a family and kids, I'm just going to give up on my medical career, just focus on podcasts. And he just has the most amazing guests on, really good interviews, and I just keep going back to listen to it. Really insightful stuff. So again, the kind of things that you wouldn't necessarily information you'd access or people you'd hear on the mainstream media, but nevertheless very significant people who've achieved a lot in their lives and got very lots of interesting things to say. And,
the stories are very interesting.
Yeah, and you feel like it's entertaining, and you feel you've learned something as a result. And,
sure.
So I keep going back to that one on my walks with Hugo in his buggy. So yeah, he can't talk yet, so I don't feel too bad about having headphones in and getting some exercise and listening to stuff as he sits there chomping on a banana or something. In the front. Yeah.
Cool.
Lovely.
I think we're done.
Yeah, brilliant.
Lovely.
That works well.
It's all right.
Cool.
Easy.